Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Thanks for joining me once again. Warhammer Roleplay Week continues, as today I am going to take a first look at Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound, Champions of Death from Cubicle 7 Games. This is written by Emmett Byrne, Michael Duxbury, Kat Evans, Cody Falk, Jordan Goldfarb, Elaine Lithgow, and Casey Shee. This 144-page hardcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $39.99. In order to get that free PDF, you have to order from Cubicle 7 or one of their partners. But you can score just the PDF alone over at DriveThruRPG for $19.99. All that said, let's swing on over to the other camera because here I've got Champions of Death for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound. Couple of things to mention before we jump on in. First of all, my friends over at Cubicle 7 were kind enough to provide me with this review copy. But neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share this coverage with you. These days, it's very important that you know that. We're also not going to look at each and every page of the book, but I do want to give you a very good feel for what you're going to find in Champions of Death. I believe this is mainly player-facing because this is going to give the players options as far as taking on the roles of undead in Soulbound. Sounds pretty interesting. In fact, it says play as powerful undead heroes and villains with this expansion featuring new archetype spells and more. Let's take a look at the back here. Kneel before the Champions of Death. Champions of Death allows players to create tragic, damned, and twisted undead characters for Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound. The book features new undead species, new archetypes, new talents, and devastating new spells and miracles. And it goes on to discuss what's in the book, but we are going to dive on in and take a peek ourselves. So first, let's start off with the credit page. So all of these folks work together to bring this book to market. Let them bask in the glory for a moment. Give credit where credit is due. Looks like quite a few illustrators took part. I'm not going to read their names because, to be honest, I would probably butcher at least half of them. Let's see what we've got as far as our contents. We'll have an introduction, Chosen of Nagash. Then we'll get into our archetypes, talents and miracles, spells, equipment, endeavors, and rituals. Death is not the end, and some appendices. For all the countless souls that inhabit the ever-expanding mortal realms, there is only one unifying experience, the inevitability of death. Death cares not for species or faction. The petty affairs of the living are cast aside as their very existence is rewritten. Ethereal spirits endure twisted punishments for all eternity. Skeletal warriors protect fallen kingdoms or harvest the bones of the living to expand their empire. All while vampires and ghouls construct dark reflections of the mortal empires they prey upon, trying and failing to mask their monstrous truths behind twisted vestiges of nobility. And all of these deadly factions must pay tribute to the great necromancer, Nagash. It's going to talk about using this book. Gives a breakdown of those various different sections, which we saw in the table of contents. So the Chosen of Nagash. So this is probably going to get into some detail about the necromancer. Also looks like we might have some random tables here. Give you some backstory, some background on your characters. So we have to what end? Why were you chosen? What vestige remains? How has death marked you? Short-term goals. It's like depending on your archetype, human, ghoul, night haunt, white. So we get into our archetypes. So the format for the archetype is going to show us our attributes, the species, core skill, other skills, core talent, other talents, and equipment. Then we have sub-factions. You might have a sub-faction bonus. Undead character advancement. Almost all undead are bound by Nagash's will in a state of mindless servitude and even the most mercurial among them require centuries to learn a new skill. While the binding ritual quickens the mind and frees soulbound undead from much of this mental stagnation, they will always struggle against their rigid nature. GMs and players should consider this when selecting character advancements. While soulbound undead may develop slowly through skill and focus advancements, acquiring new skills or talents, especially those that require scholastic learning, such as the spellcasting talent, are highly unlikely to occur without a lengthy time investment or necromantic intervention. Nice. So we've got our species, human ghoul, night haunt, bone reaper, soulblight vampire, white. We get into the flesh eater courts. Ask an outsider to describe the flesh eater courts, and they might tell you of teeming hordes of cannibal monsters swarming over battlefields with bloody claws and jagged bone weapons. Ask a courier, and they'll likely tear the querent's face off and rend the skin between their rotting teeth. But if a courtier were to express their own experience at the courts, they'll speak of banqueting halls and tourneys, noble quests, and chivalrous romance. A vital role is the last line of defense against tyrants. Okay. And it appears we're going to get into our archetypes. Abhorrent ghoul, cryptghast courtier. Got our night haunts. Knight of Shrouds. Lord Executioner. Got the Bone Reapers. Now keep in mind, I am skipping pages here, so there probably are more archetypes than what we're seeing. We've got the Mortison, the Necropolis Stalker. Necropolis Stalkers demonstrate the degree to which life holds back the living. Their hands have no purpose except to hold a blade, and their mouths needn't eat or drink, only screech to terrify their foes. Are these vampires? No, Gravelords. The Black Knight. In life, Black Knights were nobility whose wealth afforded them the equipment and training necessary to become honored cavalry. In death, deprived of their lands, their riches, and their families, all they have left is the compulsion to ride. Neither knight nor mount tire as they seek their next bout, and their skeletal expressions hardly change as they skewer the living. This looks very cool. Vampire Lord. Only Nagash and his Mortarks can command the Vampire Lords. They are the sovereigns among these soul-blight Gravelords. Their power earned over ages of warfare and study. Some spend long centuries honing their physical strength and reflexes, surpassing in experience even the oldest elven blade masters. Others refine their necromancy, and with a single contemptuous phrase, they can boil a foe's blood within their veins. We also have a necromancer here, too. So we have talents and miracles, such as Blood Fury, Eyes of Nagash. Your senses are ever vigilant and difficult to fool. The rigid order and discipline imposed by Nagash subverts obfuscation. You double your training and awareness when determining your natural awareness. Additionally, if you spot a hidden creature, it cannot hide from you until it completes a rest. Harbinger of death, hatred of the living. Peerless warrior, rider of ruin. You drive your mount to trample over lesser foes, hoping to strike at more worthy challengers. If you charge a swarm while mounted, your attack deals double damage. If you're not overly familiar with Soulbound, I point this out whenever we're taking a look at any of the releases for the RPG. This has a very high power level, even for starting characters. In fact, as far as I understand, Soulbound probably has the highest power level for any characters in a Cubicle 7 role-playing game. I would think it might get a run for its money from Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory, because in that role-playing game, you can play as Space Marines and such. But I think here, a lot of times, the heroic characters, pretty powerful. Even here, taking a look at the Champions of Death. I mean, we're looking at vampires, necromancers. Those are really powerful characters. So here we've got equipment, ageless garb, a bone club, dread halberd. Artwork throughout's pretty nice. Paper stock, nice thickness to this as well. Endeavors and rituals. To be undead is to be denied the peace of the grave. But while the dead dedicate eternity to their ceaseless toil, sometimes they are rewarded the rare chance to rest. They cherish these moments of respite, even if they are but a brief moment of quiet before the next age of suffering. So we have death in tithes, gather sycophants, hex, join community, mortal pleasures. Death erases so many of the joys of life. When you take this endeavor, you attempt to feel a mundane pleasure which you used to appreciate, such as the taste of food, the warmth of sunlight on your skin, or the quickening of your heartbeat after a thrill. Let me get into some dark rituals, which are also endeavors. The Blood Kiss, the Soulblight Curse, and its spread have long been the subject of mortal speculation and, in some foolish cases, even romanticizing. Like much of vampire lore, the Blood Kiss has been intentionally shrouded in layers of falsehoods to hide its true, horrific nature. Calling it a kiss is the greatest deception, as the act is bloody, dangerous, and rarely expresses affection. Death is not the end. I think this is our last section. Soulbound Rulebook contains a wealth of useful advice for players to act as game master in a variety of different scenarios. However, campaigns involving or focused on undead and death-aligned characters can be very different from the typical approach to Soulbound. The unique circumstances of these characters, whether in terms of their place in the immortal realms or the rules that apply to them, can merit additional consideration from the GM. This chapter goes over some of these differing considerations and places them into a context to help GMs create an exciting and thematic game using Champions of Death. So respecting the dead, common themes, curses of the undead, dark rituals and machinations, deathly encounters. Then we've got our appendices. So it looks like we've got some new swarms, like the bat swarm, fell bat. It's like a bit of a bestiary here. Quite a few, actually. Hag priestess. Sky rigger. Very, very solid art throughout. A night quester. Branch witch. Kurnoth hunter. So funny enough, these are archetypes that players can take on, such as like champions of order and things like that, or in the core book. But here it looks like these are being utilized as enemies, right? Because you're looking at the champions of death. Nice. All right, so that is a look inside Warhammer Age of Sigmar Soulbound Champions of Death from Cubicle 7 Games. I will say, Sammy Uhas will have a review of Champions of Death in the not-so-distant future. All right, that is it for this time out. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. It'll not only let you know when I share videos such as this first look, it'll also inform you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings right here on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on the YouTube channel, such as the aforementioned reviews from Sammy, All right. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to tune in tomorrow as Warhammer Roleplay Week will continue. I'm Jeff McAleer, and until I see you next time, certainly hope all of you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.